The third ideal that flows through the Build Better Act is to identify people by racial background. Whether you're talking about money for small businesses, money for teacher preparation, money for community restoration, faculty of colleges of medicine, equity in the Department of Agriculture or behavioral health, wherever you look, it's not like the programs are for all Americans. The programs are designed for certain Americans. I was reading some statements by Yuri Bezmenov, who was a Russian defector in the 1960s. And at the time, he talked about how the Marxists planned to take over America. He said the majority of money spent in the United States was not spent on subversive or covert activities. It was spent openly to try to demoralize Americans and think that America was not a great country. A quote from him is that racial and ethnic interrelations is one of the most vulnerable areas for demoralization of Americans. Now, one would think, his observation as someone who had been around the world, is there's no better place to live than America. But right now, it seems as though the majority party is doing the work that the Soviets wanted to accomplish in the 20s. They want to tell everybody that we ought to have racial animus, that we ought to pit one group against another group. When you look around the world, one of the reasons why nations fail, nations based on elections, is those elections become contests between ethnic groups. I never feel Canada was quite as successful as America because to a degree their elections pitted the French speakers against the English speakers. You look at elections in the Middle East, and it's the Sunnis against the Shiites. You look at elections in Africa, and it's one tribe against another tribe. In other words, when they go to the polls, they don't say, what's the appropriate money to spend on national defense, or what's our roads policy, or what should be appropriate criminal justice policy, or the length of jail sentences. No, in these countries that fail, the elections are a contest of one ethnic group against another. Not surprisingly, therefore, that people who want America to fail would set up programs designed to benefit one group against the other. We've seen this earlier this session when we had a program for giving agriculture debts only for so-called people of color. We also saw it earlier this session when we had a program that ran out of money for restaurateurs, and the people at the bottom of the list were people who happened to be white. Guy came up to me in my district who would have got, he claims, tens of thousands of dollars. If he had a different ethnic background, he wondered why he was left behind. Well, it's because we have a party here that likes to set one group against another group. So that's the third way, or the third vision, that the majority party has for America. They want to pit one group against the other. They want people to always view themselves, rather than as an American, they want to view themselves as a Hispanic American or an Asian American or an African American. It's a party that wants to further entrench in the American psyche the idea that we had to have different programs based on sex, different programs based on race, and people ought to ask, what are you going to give me because I am from this group? Or what are you going to give me because I'm a woman, rather than treating all Americans the same? It's a bill that's put out with an ideal of the government raising the children instead of the parents, more responsibility for raising the children instead of the parents. Again, something that I think would have stunned our forefathers. And finally, it's a bill put together by people who want to hire a lot of new government employees to monitor what's going on. I strongly encourage my colleagues to vote against the bill, and I strongly encourage the American public to familiarize yourself not only with the size of the cost of the bill, but the degree to which we are fundamentally changing the way Americans live.